Hi, everyone. So, today I'm going to give you the crash course for the most essential thing you need to learn as a new music producer, besides arguably EQ and equalization. But compression is one of the very first few things I think a new music producer should be focusing on. And so, with that being said, let me give you that crash course. So, we're in Logic Pro today, um, and here's our compressor. There's a lot of different kinds of compressors in Logic, and these can vary from the style of music you're doing or a specific sound you want. So if you don't know which one, I would recommend going to Google or ChatGPT, whatever you want, being like, if I want this kind of sound or doing this style of music, which compressor is traditionally used? Or you could just go with your gut and use what sounds good, whatever you feel. But they all work the same way, so you're not missing out. They just have subtle differences. So we'll go with the one that was originally on the screen. All right, so here's the little tour. On this side of the compressor, you can see the incoming audio signal. See? The piano is coming through. On this side, you can see the outbound signal, the compressed signal coming out of the compressor. Up here, we have the gain reduction meter. This is called the gain reduction meter. You can see that it's currently being compressed around 3 to 5-ish decibels. There's also an option to view as a graph. All of these little ducks right here, all of the little dips are where the signal is being compressed by that amount of decibels. Simple enough, right? So if you look at the threshold, this is the volume of the incoming audio signal at which the compressor is going to kick on. The threshold will start working at negative 24.5 decibels. See, if we lower that, it might start getting more compressed because it's coming on much earlier. It's coming on now at negative 44.5 decibels, which is a lot quieter than up here, where it's getting less compressed and less compressed and less compressed, right? So I think it was about there, but who knows? It doesn't matter. So if we go to the ratio knob here, the ratio is, to put it simply, just the amount of compression you're applying, the level of it. So if you're at a higher level, you're doing more intense compression. If you're at a lower level, you're doing less intense compression. And let me give you an example of what the ratio actually means. So let's use 2-to-1 ratio, for example. For every 2 decibels that your incoming audio signal goes over this threshold that we set, 1 decibel of compression is being applied. So that is the technical definition if you really want to get into the details. But it's just essentially the intensity of the compression you want to apply. The makeup knob, sometimes when you compress an audio signal, it can get, the overall volume of the track or sound can get quieter. Let's see if this is the case with this piano. See, it does get quieter when the compressor is switched to on. So this makeup knob allows you to boost that volume if you need, to get it back up to a volume that works well with whatever song you're making, whatever your mix may be. You can adjust this to taste, or you can really get into the nitty-gritty and look at the incoming and outbound audio signals and get them to match and get the gain to match. I wouldn't recommend using the auto gain buttons on any of Logic's compressors, but if you find that to be working for you, then go for it. The attack knob here is essentially how fast the compressor switches on once the threshold is met. Once this threshold, once the compressor is seeing that your audio signal is reaching negative 25 decibels, it's going to then go straight to the attack knob and be like, "Oh, how fast do they want this compressor to turn on?" And if it's at, say, 1.5 milliseconds, the compressor is going to switch on very, very fast. 1.5 milliseconds after the compressor sees that your signal has reached negative 25 decibels. Whereas if you go a little later, it's going to wait 200 milliseconds now before turning on altogether. They both have different uses, but one note I will give you is that a faster attack time often reduces the punch of a sound, because when you hear a sound like a clap, the strongest part of that clap is at the very second your hands hit together. It's like a boom. It's called the transient. And your attack time, if you want to compress that transient, get rid of that punch, then you're going to go with a faster attack time. This is good in some cases, but in some other cases, you're going to want to keep that punchy sound to preserve the integrity of that sound. But anyways, you can do whatever you want, whatever you think sounds good. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do what you think sounds good. Now go to release. Release, the technical definition is how long does the compressor to take to stop reducing the volume of your signal, to stop the compression. Or, in other words, how fast this little stick is returning to zero. See, at a longer time, it takes a very long time to return to zero, or may not even return to zero because it's so long. But at a quick time, you see, it's only taking 5 milliseconds to return back to that 0 decibels of compression state. So the longer times are compressing your signal more and more. And both are useful for different scenarios. You're just going to have to use your ears to listen, or do some research about what's traditional if you want to get all technical. But that is the definition of release. You'll notice that some compressors, like the Platinum Digital or the Vintage VCA, for example, they have a knee knob. This knee, the definition of the knee is how fast your compressor is switching between a compressed state and an uncompressed state. So for maybe a natural sounding vocal, you're going to want to go to a softer knee, which you can find with the higher values. A softer knee is going to preserve that natural sound of the voice without compressing it too abruptly. Whereas if you go to a 0, this is called a hard knee, and the compression is going to kick in very abruptly, and this might be the sound that you want for certain sounds. However, you're just going to play with this and you're going to be like, what sounds better? And you're going to go with that and trust your gut and not worry too much about technical details. But yeah, that is the basic premise of using a compressor in Logic Pro or any other DAW for that. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. That is the basics of compression. There's not too much more to learn about it, and very useful. And you also might ask, what's the point of compression in the first place? Well, compression, it takes the loudest part of a sound or a track and the quietest part of a sound or a track, and it brings them closer together. It gives you more of an even, leveled sound that is more professional sounding in some cases and can help bring your sound or track to the front of the mix to help it all stick together better. Compression is glorious when you figure out how to use it. but it also sometimes needs to be used sparingly because it might destroy the dynamic performance of your track. You just have to be careful and trust your gut. But you know how to use compression now. That's the basic premise of compression. If you enjoyed this video, I would be very appreciative if you could like or subscribe. It helps me continue producing more content that will help you guys in your music production endeavors and showing you behind the scenes of my music that I make. And yeah, I really appreciate you stopping by for this compression tutorial. Thanks, guys.